I appreciate you going through the pain. I know we talked about it a little bit before, just about how painful this is. And I appreciate it, man. It's gonna be powerful. All right, Jeremy, what's up, man? 217 had some
Booyah.
crazy ass stuff going on. Man, I appreciate you coming on here sharing your story, man. I think it'll be really impactful for all the listeners. You know, we got a bunch of kids on here that are trying to go to Buds. I know you've been listening for a while. The young people today, you know, they all claim that it's changed, you know, that Buds has changed. It's not the same no more. I'm like, look, man, I don't have somebody in Buds since 2004, and it's the exact same program, you
Yeah,
know? So
I don't think it's changed much from what I've seen from what you can find on the internet nowadays. So,
yeah. So look, let's talk early on how you were raised, where you grew up. I know you had a hard ass job before you got in. So how'd you grow up?
well,
Hang on,
I've
can you
seen
hear
one of your
that?
videos talking about that bad boy right there.
Crazy. Everybody's calling me about the Dan Brown video. Everybody's calling me. Like everybody is calling me from Buds and like everywhere. They're like, "Oh my God, Jake, that was so awesome." I'm like, "Shit, man, you
Yeah,
telling
it was good, man. I enjoyed it. I haven't seen Dan since we were in class and brought back a lot of memories.
a lot of craziness. He remembers
Oh,
everything."
the young guys got to hear this because they got to know what they're up against. And
Mhm.
that's what I love about your channel is it's raw, honest truth, and you keeping it 100% real. So, and I mean, God bless you for doing it because I'm telling you, I think that's what got me as far as it did, which was Thursday before Hell Week. Um, but like we talked about before, I think the optimum age to getting into buds is like 25, 24, 27-ish. I think if I had a little bit more maturing, the kind of maturing that I got after I made a bad decision, and I think it'd be best for these kids. But I really appreciate it. I appreciate that you having me on here, and I appreciate the opportunity to help these young guys out that want to serve their country, and they might think they want to be a SEAL, and maybe after they hear certain things, they might realize, hey man, this ain't for me. So
Yep.
you know,
Yep.
so I'll get started where I grew up. I grew up here in California, same place where Buds is at, Sacramento in the capital. I grew up in a pretty rough neighborhood, lower middle class income family. Always taught from a very young age, do everything, do your best by my dad. My dad worked in the landscaping for the city of Davis here in California. I think my mind kind of blocked a lot of that out, a lot of certain things out, and just raised me to always do the best job that I can, no matter what I'm doing.
Did you go to work with him when you were younger? Did you like?
You know what? Yeah, in high school, start off as a kid. I saw your asthma video, so I grew up a premature kid with lung issues from birth. Had asthma as a kid, playing soccer and all that, taking inhalers and all these different meds. But was on prednisone like you for a while.
Yeah.
That caused me to gain a lot of weight, and I struggled with my weight as a kid. Ever since then, traumatic experience. When I was 14, my older cousin, he's like 2 years older than me. He was my older brother because his parents were divorced, so they'd always come out with my mom and my dad and I, and we go camping and out on the boat, water skiing, and all that kind of stuff. And he got shot and murdered. So at 14 years old, that was a really hard thing to deal with. I got it. I got through it. But I turned to like food as a kid, and I already had problems with my weight because of prednisone, but like as an emotional thing. So, anyways, I grew up with that. I grew up going hunting with my dad all the time, fishing. I love the outdoors. I'm always been an outdoors kind of guy, similar to you. I got used to waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning. Oh dark 100, get out there, sit on a deer stand. Freezing all by myself. My dad's not there. He's off on his own deer stand, and you hearing things in the woods, and you're like, oh man, what's that? Oh, like you start getting head games. So you start getting used to that mental kind of stuff when you do outdoor stuff. Like, hey man, this is just me out here. I got to handle my business, and whatever happens, happens. So that's kind of like a little bit of my childhood.
Did you fight a lot?
I didn't really I got into a couple of conflicts like in high school, but it was mainly like guys trying to bully, because I grew up getting teased about my weight and stuff, and I didn't handle that too well. I'm not,
Yeah, yeah. I was a
so
little
yeah,
fat kid too, man. They
so
busting on me about my brass eagles. So
yeah, so I went into Kempo karate training.
Okay.
and that gave me a confidence booster. I used to do that. My dad would go and take classes with me as well, and man, it never even took a fight. I didn't even never got in a fight. All it took was that confidence builder right there, and I got into like actually I did get in one fight. I take that back. It just came back to my memory, but man, I'm getting old, 48, you know how it is.
You ain't gotta
Uh,
tell me I'm 4 years older than you. This shit real now.
yeah,
It's real.
we feeling all these injuries. There's a couple dudes that bullied me, and all I did was stand up to them. I had like a whole group of dudes come up, and all I did was stand my ground and just staring them down by myself. And there's like four other guys. They backed off. They didn't
Yeah,
want me,
yeah.
And then there was another guy who, like, later on, it was weird. Teenagers, weird stuff happens. But I gave him, this is back in the day when you can still like have someone riding in the back of your pickup truck, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it was the good old days.
Yeah,
So I was
yeah.
giving this one dude a ride home. I didn't really know him all that well. I was driving a little too fast around the corners, and he kind of like didn't get really thrown around, but like, he got freaked out. I freaked him out, and he got mad at me, and I pulled off the road, and I said, cussing me out and all this. And he ended up like punching, like trying to hit me. And so, I like hit him, and he took off, didn't want any more after that. And I got back in my truck, and I went home. But that's like the most conflict I ever had. My other fight that I got into was after Buds, and I took on two guys, and let's just say didn't, especially after going through Buds, like the aggression and all of that just kicked in, and it was like, oh, okay, you want some?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It's crazy now, man. Guns and knives. Like knives were around back then, and you were in Cali, so they were shooting them when we were growing up.
yeah.
But like now, I think it's on a whole nother level, man.
It
Like
is. It's crazy. Yeah. I
it's
mean,
on a whole nother level.
I had my blade on me, and you know, I ain't gonna lie, I was drinking. And but hey, man, the I was in the parking lot with one of my buddies who was a rescue swimmer in my squadron, and these two dudes came out, and the girls that they were with were crying and telling them to get away, leave them alone. They were obviously drunk. Said, hey, man, they don't want none. Leave them alone. Leave them alone. You guys have been drinking. You're drunk. I don't know what's going on, but just leave them alone. And they didn't back off. And this dude came up to me, and he's like, man, I'll do you in the, taking all, I've been in county prison, blah, 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 and all this. And
Welcome to the real world. Let's see how it goes.
I just said, all right. I was like, you're going to do that to me? Bring it. Bring
Yeah,
it. And he swung at me, and I sidestepped him, and I grabbed him. I grabbed him under the chin and by the back of the head, and took his momentum and slammed it into his truck that was parked right next to where we were. I'm not kidding you. I dented the truck door with his head like that deep.
That's how it should be.
He was done. And then his buddy came up and like hit me from behind and hit me in the face with the lawn chair. That really like sent me. And I pulled out my knife. I pulled out my knife on him because I was like, oh, you want to pull out weapons now?
Mm.
So I pulled out my blade, and then I realized, and right at that time, some lady, just random lady, because this was in Qualcomm Stadium parking lot, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Qualcomm.
Yeah, we were there. One of my buddies passed out in the driver's seat with his keys in the ignition and locked the door. So me and my other dude that was there, was just three of us. I was like, hey, man, we got to watch him in case he wakes up and tries driving off or something, because he can't be driving. So we were staying out there watching this dude while everybody else went in and was watching the motocross race that was happening and whatnot.
Gotcha.
And so anyways, this lady came up. She's like, hey, what's going on? And I realized, I kind of snapped out of it like, man, if I attack this guy with this knife, man, I could be doing time, even though it's self-defense.
Time, my dude.
I was like, nah. So I pocketed the knife, and he came at me with the chair again, and I blocked it, and I punched him in his nose. And next thing you know, the lady's like, I'm calling the cops. I'm pretty sure I broke the guy's nose. And then I told my buddy, I was like, hey, man, dude, we got to get out of here. Cops are coming. So we rolled out, we rolled towards the stadium, and then we were walking around looking for, San Diego PD to come up or whatever. And I was like, I just live up the hill from here, man, right up the hill. Like literally, let's
Yeah.
get out of here and go to my place on foot. So we got out of there, and that was the last fist fight that I've been in. It was after Buds, but
You better than me, bro. You better than me.
yeah, well,
I got a banger in 17. Banger. I came home. I had a knot on my head this big. My wife was like, what the I said, I don't want to talk about it, man. I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, man. I got a chip in my tooth from that guy hitting me still right here from hitting me with that chair. But anyway,
So,
um,
so you get done, like you're in high school. At what point did you know you wanted to go SEALs? Like where did that come from?
oh man, you remember that movie Charlie Sheen and
Oh, Navy SEALs.
yeah, Navy SEALs, man. Ever since I saw that, it kind of lit a thing in my head. Like, man, these dudes are so awesome.
See, I thought that movie was corny, man. Like
Yeah.
people ask me, I'm like, look, the 18, man, B.A. Baracus,
Oh, A-Team.
Murdoch,
I
yeah.
watched all that.
The A
A-Team.
team had me, and the
Yeah.
other one that got me
Yeah.
was MacGyver, and then Magnum PI was a SEAL, but like he was a cool dude, you know what I'm saying? But I like MacGyver and then the A team, and then when the Navy SEAL movie came out, like it was kind of like, man, this is corny, bro. Like this dude getting people killed out here and doing dumb stuff. Like I just thought it was corny, and I'll be honest with you, it's stupid. There was a kid on my wrestling team in high school that went Navy SEAls, right? And he kept talking about he was going Navy SEALs. I'm going Navy SEALs. I was like, man, this dude going to swim around in the ocean? What are you talking about? And even after watching the Charlie Sheen movie, I still didn't understand that Navy SEALs were in the Navy. I get it. So the movie got you. You had the bug.
Well, yeah, well, not just that movie, man. I grew up watching all the corny Hollywood stuff like Commando and
Oh yeah,
I love
Commando.
Commando with
Let's
Arnold and all that.
go,
I was just like, yeah,
Commando.
I was like, man, these guys are awesome.
The other big one was what's the other Full Metal Jacket. We
oh
used to watch
man,
Full Metal Jacket
yeah,
on
yeah.
repeat, and Platoon. Platoon was another good
Platoon
one.
probably was one of the movies that I was, man, I can't even tell you how many times I watched
Now we
Platoon.
watched them every day. We'd watch one of the movies at my house.
Yeah,
I had
yeah,
like 5 videotapes, and we had Top Gun at my house. But I was the only one that liked Top Gun, so I would watch that all the time.
yeah, man. So yeah, that kind of was. I was always into that stuff as a kid, and I grew up shooting guns. And my grandfather's a World War II vet, 82nd Airborne. He fought in World War II, and I was just like, man, I want to do something like my papa did. Like serve the country and all of that. And um, but yeah, that those movies, that kind of stuff, outdoor stuff, cammying up, hunting, like hiding in the bush, being able to be undetected by other hunters, like walking right by you. They don't even know you're there. I'm like, man, I love this crap. I love it. This is like, this is awesome. So, you know, uh, yeah, I love just doing that stuff. And I got out of high school, was still pretty overweight. I weighed about, man, because of just bad eating habits. I grew up, my parents weren't exactly the healthiest eating habits and all that. There's always junk food in my house, like all that kind of stuff. And plus what happened, I kind of developed that like emotional eating type thing. And so anyway, uh, what else? Like
Like right after high school, or like right before you
right
got
after
done.
right after high school, man. So while I was in high school, I was kind of interested in law enforcement. I was doing some stuff with sac sheriffs, ROP or whatever, regional occupational program thing,
Okay.
and we do the obstacle course there. And I kind of got into like working out a little bit doing that because we had to be able to jump the wall and stuff that they had there at the sheriff's academy place. And got tear gassed and for the first time, and I was like, oh man, this is wow. So when the boot camp came around, that wasn't a big shock to me like a lot of other people. I was into that. And then junior year, my senior year, taking biology, one of the teachers said that there was a program to where the U.S. Forest Service for help kids in the city like experience the outdoors. And I'm like, hey, this is me, man.
This is me. I'm
I'm
on
up in the
this.
mountains. I'm up. So I'm like, I'm going. So that summer we did this little short excursion up there. They had us in the barracks and just showed us all the different things, everything except what I ended up doing, which was funny. Like the guys who measure the trees and the growth of the trees, and like the fishery people and these other career paths that the Forest Service offers. Turns out when time came around, I graduated high school. I was calling them, man. I was dropping apps, putting in the work, trying to get that job with them. I was like, hey, I did this program with you guys. I really want to work with you. And they said, well, and I was applying for one of the tree guys to help measure trees and all that. And they told me, oh man, it turns out that we don't have that position available anymore, but we got a position on our fire crew, and we need an extra dude on the fire crew. And I was like, oh, whoa, okay, that's, I don't know about that. I don't know anything about fighting fires, but so there's like, yeah, so you might want to start preparing and this and that. And I'm 18. I'm like, okay, cool. So I started working out a little bit, but I was still pretty hefty, big guy, and
When you say big, how tall are you?
I'm 6 foot.
6 foot. How much you weigh?
At that time, I think I weighed about 260.
Oh, so you were a big dude.
Yeah, 250, two
Yeah,
sixty,
yeah.
somewhere around there. Wore like 42-inch pant. Yeah, it was I got there my first day, and I got there a little bit early, and there's a step test where they got a box and you have to go by one of those metronome. Is it a metronome? Is that what they call it for like a piano player? Those click, click,
Oh, yeah,
click,
yeah, yeah.
click,
A
a
ticker
ticker. I
thing.
don't know what they're called, man,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
so there's this box, it's like 18 and a half inches high that they have, and they call it a step test. And you got to do that thing up and down for so many minutes. I think it was like 5 or 6 minutes straight or something crazy
Okay.
like that. And then after you're done, they take your pulse and they let you rest for I think a minute or two and then take your pulse. So like the first time, anyways, I failed that sucker, and that just lit a fire in me because I was like, nah, I want this. I want to do this job. I want to find out what it's about. So I started training, and just every day, all the other dudes on my crew were like, work was over and whatnot, and they're off relaxing, and I'm out running. I started running up and down the road every day, which was a killer. So I passed that and got into firefighting. Back in those days, it was none of this like be kinder, gentler type thing everywhere you. So the dudes on the fire crew were pretty hard. You know how it is. Just like in
It's a
Bud,
hard job now.
just like in Bud. So I
If
caught stuff for being like slow in the runs and all that, and it just lit a fire in me. And I said, I'm gonna prove all these mo's wrong, and I did good. I got this nickname Geronimo because like we'd be out there working in the mountain, and I slipped down the mountain and I just come sliding down because I was my agility wasn't good. I was out of shape, all that. Turns out I did that for 3 years, right? But man,
Ooh,
the winter time, I did all
ooh.
right. That I did all right that first season, but I was like, I'm gonna show all these fools. On the winter time when I had time off, I was laid off as seasonal firefighting. You get employment benefits, whatever.
Yeah.
So I spent that whole time because I still lived at home with my mom and dad. So I spent that whole time just busting, just
So
running and running. And I still had the Navy SEAL bug in my head. So one
no,
day,
no, no. What did an average day look like on a fire crew? Let's say give me two days, one fighting a fire and one not. What time it start? What'd you
oh,
do?
brother, we'd get up at like, I'd be up at 5 a.m. 5 a.m., no joke. We'd go out, we'd PT, we'd run like 3 to 4 miles. We did a little bit of push ups. We had some pull up bars there. So we did pull ups. I couldn't do any pull ups at that time. We had dip bars right there at the station and pull up bars. I couldn't do either because I was still, too much extra body weight. First season, second season, I came back with the vengeance because I lost a lot of weight. By my third season, because I was working out doing SEAL PTs, I didn't have all of the things that these kids have nowadays. I had to recon, do my own learning as much as I can about what SEALs is all about. Turned out at one of the gun shows I went to with my dad, chest tapes of like Navy SEAL workout. And it was like one of these ex SEALs that did this Navy SEAL burnout PT. And it was like a 2.5 hour long, like just go every set to failure, like kick your butt. And I started
Yeah.
doing that my second winter off. I started doing that 5 days a week, plus
Mm,
doing my 4 or 5 mile runs. And I was like, I'm coming back and I'm going to show these suckers on my crew.
yeah.
So I do that. I do those SEAL PTs. Then I'd go run 4 miles and I'd always just increase the distance, increase it harder, increase it harder. Next thing you know, I'm doing like 8 miles. Started doing pull ups. I didn't have a pull up, Eve,
Yeah.
like with
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
roof. So
Yeah.
I'd go out there, man, and just grab onto the jump up, grab onto the edge of that thing, and I'd just be doing pull ups. Whenever the video got to pull ups, I'm like, I'm going out. I would go out the door, do my pull-ups, come back in, start doing the next, stretching that we do. And that video had everything: neck bridges, flutter kicks, good morning darlings, 8 count
Yeah.
bodybuilders, like all of the stuff we do at Buds. And I did all that. Eventually my dad was like, hey man, let's put up a pull-up bar. So I helped him. We went down to Home Depot, bought some posts and pull up bar in my backyard, and I just rack them out. And eventually I got up to doing like 28 pull-ups
Damn.
on my body weight and doing
Damn.
that. I used to practice because I used to watch what I did know about buds, because at the beginning of that workout video, it'd show the candidates like doing the backflip up the tower to the
Yeah,
slide for
yeah,
life.
yeah, yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, oh, dude, I got to be able to do that. So I used to get on the pull-up bar and pull myself up like that and flip myself over and just practice over and over doing that
Let's
over
go.
and
Let's
over and
go.
over. And
I think, Jeremy, I'm telling you, like, I love what you're saying right now, because if you told me you did all this stuff leading up to buds, I would be happy, right? Now, I'd like you to swim a little bit more, but I wouldn't be unhappy. I'd be like, man, this dude had a gritty
oh
firefighting job, Woodland firefighting for 3 years. He got a COPT VHS that he's
yeah,
murdering 3 or 5 times a week. He's running 8 miles a day. Like, I just want everybody to understand, like, the physical preparation
it's
was
no joke.
95% there, right? Like, you was killing it.
Yeah.
And we haven't even talked about it, but I just want to make sure that we emphasize that, because, a lot of people talk to me about, everybody thinks it's a physical game. There's so much more to the place than just a physical game.
It's just like you and I were talking on the phone, you know, it's just gonna be you, man. I mean, even if your boat crew's right there, you're gonna be here, right here with
Right
the
by yourself.
demons, and you got all those megaphones going off, and it's complete chaos, and all you can do is focus on the pain and staying focused on doing what they're asking you to do and try to block it all out and turn it into aggression. And anyways, I did swim my last winter right before after I went through MEPS and all that. I signed up with the community college. I was taking swimming endurance class there, and
Okay.
the lady there, man, she was old school. She's about ready to retire, but she was so awesome. She's like, oh, I love that movie Frogman. She's like, I know exactly what you do, and I know what we need to do. So she was really awesome. Her name was Sandy. I forget her last name, but man, God bless her.
Shout out to Sandy, right?
She,
Let's send Sandy a shout out. What
yeah,
what community college?
it was because no, I'm sorry, hold give me a second. Rockland, it was in Rockland, California. Sierra College.
Sierra
Sierra
College. Shout out
Sierra
to Sandy
College.
in the swimming pool. We all got one, man. I
Yeah.
got an EOD dude that took care of me up at Newport, Rhode Island. He was swimming. What you training for? I said, I'm training to be a Navy SEAL. He said, man, who taught you how to swim? I was like, And my
Yeah.
boy was in the pool with me. He had told me the same thing the day before. I kind of blew him off, but this
Yeah.
dude, we couldn't blow. He said, we're gonna start swimming intervals right now.
Yep.
That was it, man. Like 3 weeks later, I was swimming the fastest I had ever swam.
Yeah. I mean, all I knew how to do, I grew up with one of those above the ground round pools in our backyard. I could swim, and I loved my favorite part was the underwater, like just
Yeah.
going underwater and being underwater. I was like, man, I feel like I'm floating in space. I just always loved it as a kid. But anyway, get back on track here. Sandy was like, she was awesome. She taught me all the strokes, breaststroke, side stroke, butterfly, all that freestyle. And once she saw that I got those down, the rest of the class, way everyone else was doing the assigned swimming their yards and the assigned stroke, she gave me the 10-pound rubber lifeguard brick, and she just had me holding that on my hip and doing laps the whole time I was there.
Okay.
One arm, and I just do that until class was over. That was only a couple of days a week, but I was like, I gotta at least know how to do this so I can pass the entrance exam.
Fire.
So
Fire preparation, son.
yeah, so that's all I can do. I was like, man, when I see your videos, I'm like, man, I'd give my left testicle to like been able to meet a Navy SEAL that's offering the knowledge and everything that's available on the internet.
Man.
I mean, even with the Special Warfare Center, you got all the videos, and they're telling you, what to do, how to do everything. And
You know what I say though, Jeremy? This is one of the things that I think is very interesting. I learned this when I was playing college football. So you get hurt and you stand on the sidelines, right? You watch practice.
yeah,
And your first assumption is, oh man, that practice wasn't that bad. Wasn't that bad. But then you start looking closer at your boys and you're like, God, dog, he looked worn out. And then you're like, hey man, explain, how was practice, man? That shit was rough.
yeah,
And you're like, man, and I try to explain to people, you can't watch a video and understand what's going on. It's just not how it's
No,
made.
you can't, man. And I did the best I could for what I had, though, man. I took advantage of it my last time off from that season. Um, we'll have to get back into a daily day. I'm getting
You're all
mixed
right.
up with all over the place,
Like I'm
but
gonna cut it all up, so it don't matter.
yeah.
So okay,
So
you want to talk to me about a normal day firefighting because you had
so
3 years. So just talk to me about what a normal day was not fighting a fire, and then we're gonna talk about a normal day fighting a fire.
so my normal day, not fighting a fire, man. I'd get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock at we got to be at work at 6 a.m. Got to get out there, equipment check, make sure the trucks are ready, checking all the cabinets, making sure we got enough fuel for the chainsaws, making sure our tools are sharpened. Uh, you know, people drinking coffee, doing that. This is after the morning PT session,
Okay.
and then we'd get all our stuff checked, and then we'd go out in the field. And the Forest Service, if you're down on fires, then they have like all these other projects where they need brush cut and cleared and thinned out there. So you're out there busting butt. You're
Yep.
out there hiking, carrying tools. You got your fire pack on. You're carrying a gallon of water, which, I mean, my pack weighed probably about 40 pounds. And then plus you're carrying a tool. My first year I was in the back of the crew because I was out of shape, whatnot. And I had a McLeod, and then my
What's a
second year,
McLeod?
McLeod's like one of these big hoes with like a rake on one side and a hoe on the other
Gotcha.
about this wide, and you use it
Gotcha.
to finish the fire line. But eventually I got moved up to like Pulaski team up in the very front, right behind the chainsaw guys. And eventually I got assigned to a saw team and carrying a chainsaw around once I was, came back showing them I meant business and wasn't messing around. Um, but so that would be your average day. We'd go out, practice cutting fire line. We'd have drills like that, stuff like that out in the woods. The one of the chiefs would go out and he'd flag through the brush with like forestry little tapes, like high fluorescent markers
Yep.
that we'd have to go through and practice cutting fire line around a fake mock fire. And we get dispatched. They'd see how long it took us to get there and all that kind of stuff. And that was like we'd have one of those like once or twice a season, little practice run with our
What
fire
time would you
engines.
normally knock off?
Yeah, man, we knock off. We normally about six, five,
So you
five,
working
5:30.
5 a.m. to 6 pretty much every day.
Yeah, about 11 hours, something like that. It was a good full work day, and we
Good.
drive. It'd take us sometimes about an hour and a half to get out to where we working, but we'd be out there nonstop physical labor, sweating,
Mm,
bugs
mm,
biting
mm.
you, all that. I loved it, man. The chainsaw. When I got on the saw, that was like my crack. I mean, you give me
You
a,
was happy on that saw.
yeah.
I done stood number two on that saw for many a year as a kid, man. And I was happy. I was happy when my dad got me ear muffins, right? I was like, oh my God, because I'd be standing out there with my fingers in my ear, kind of like my youngest kid does now. And then I got the ear muffins, and you able to work while the saw is running. You like, man. So
Yeah, man. I loved it. I was a swamper before I got on this. When I got on the saw team first, I was the guy standing behind the saw, eating all the chips
yeah,
going
yeah,
down your
yeah.
shirt, all
Covered,
that.
covered in
Oh yeah,
sawdust.
yeah, yeah. Kind of like buds, you get sand everywhere. I had wood chips coming out my butt crack every night. You know
In your
how it goes.
ears.
In your ears,
In
in
the
your
ears.
everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I did that, and then I got bumped up to saw, became second saw eventually my last year, and
What
learned how to fall trees, the big boys using the
yep.
axe and a wedge and all that. And then I fought some big fires. I think the biggest one was like 300,000 something acres way
So
back
talk to
then.
me. What did a fire day look like?
Fire day would be crazy if it was close. um it we get out there and try to stomp it out, probably be on the line for like 12, 14 hours straight, or if it's just a small one. But the big boys, like one of the best fires I ever been on. I mean, you'd be there for like a whole month where you'd fighting it until it's out, and then mopping up, making sure all the hot spots are put out with water and stuff. So
Mm,
you're pretty much hiking up and down those mountains, man, all day
for a
long.
month straight.
Oh yeah, or
Yeah, yeah.
longer. The whole summer, yeah,
And
for a month
digging and
straight.
carrying the
And digging and
chainsaw.
carrying
Yeah.
chainsaws and big old 5 gallon water bladders. We carry those on top of our fire packs. We carry 5 gallons more with our tools. So when we got the shovels and our other tools in the hot coals, you can spray that water in there because you're out in the middle of nowhere. There's no
Yeah.
streams or lakes around. No engines, hoses can't get there. So you're out there.
Hang on real quick, Jim. What? I'm not sure. Is she not upstairs? All right, go back to bed, Lewis.
So anyway, we did, we do that and got heloed in one time. But there's times, man, I'm not kidding you, Jake, like specifically this one of my favorite fires that I got to fight because it's not every day unless you're on hell attack, you get to ride in a Huey. And I love
Yeah, I'm
bring it,
telling you,
man. Bring it.
my first helicopter ride was one of the scariest things I've ever done, man. We
It
were
was.
in Marine Corps training, and they had landed the helicopter in the woods, like in the middle of the woods, like not in a clearing. I'm talking about in the middle of the trees, and they gave us a familiarization with it. They're like, look, it can go through 3-inch tree limbs, like this, and this. And I'm like, oh my god! And I'll never forget. It was a 46, and when we got in, it started doing this, right? You know how the 46 oscillated
Yeah.
until it like leveled out, and then it started taking off.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, it's gonna crash. It's gonna crash. Tree limbs were flying everywhere. Yeah, one of the scariest things I ever did was the first helicopter flight. Like I was like, oh my God. But then after that, like you get the SEAL teams, you riding with your feet out the door, and like there's some bad feelings. Like you was a bad man when you riding with your feet out the door, going somewhere. Like, man.
Yeah, I can imagine. We were strapped in, but we got on this particular fire, and this is I actually, to give people idea how physically demanding it is. The canyon was so steep where the fire was that the only way in was by helicopter. Like you couldn't walk down it, and they wanted us to start cutting line from the bottom up. So we got driven to the airport. All of us got in the Huey, and it was an experience because I was like, man, I feel like I'm in Vietnam right now, like, growing up watching movies like Platoon and stuff, but
I mean,
it
people
was,
die fighting fires now.
oh yeah.
But let's
Oh
not get
yeah.
it
Yeah.
confused. Like
Yeah.
it's not down there on that like office work job.
Yeah.
It's a dangerous job.
It's dangerous. And that going out there, like the first time a fire jumped our line and we had to get in the black. And I mean, I was only 18. I was pretty scared. I ain't going to lie. But after you've been doing it for a few seasons, you just
When you
get
say
used
get in
to
the
it.
black, you mean get in that little tent that you have that protects you from the
When we
fire?
had that, no, they just there was a spot where it's where the fire's already burnt. So we were
Gotcha.
cutting
Gotcha.
line around it, right?
Yeah.
And the fire beneath us, because we were already halfway up the hill on this one fire, and it somehow crossed our line and started coming up the hill like raging.
Gotcha.
And that was a pretty scary incident. But to get back on the helicopter fire, we flew down, and that pilot was good, man. I mean, he dropped down and was flying straight down the side of the mountain, and we got down to the American River, and he landed us like right on the bank of the river. We got out and we started working, and I mean, we were on that line. We got on scene after the helicopter ride probably about, I'd say, man, 12, 1 or 2 in the afternoon, something like that, and just hiking straight uphill, cutting line, big 200-pound boulders rolling down the hill. We call it rock, and everybody's, it's like the parting of the Red Sea. Everybody's flying every different direction, just trying to stay alive. Big boulders coming down the hill like that, and it's
Yeah,
just
because
from
the fire is freeing them up, right? Like the fire is
it
heating them up and
was
they coming out.
that, and also we had one other hotshot crew right up above us.
Gotcha.
So they were sending things loose, and it was just crazy. But hiking up that hill, working like that in the heat, it's like 100 degrees outside. It was like July or August, I don't remember. I mean, I was like 21, but anyway, I got heat exhaustion. I had to, like, my captain came up and had me sit down and resting and gave me some Gatorade, and I just sat there for maybe like half an hour, 45 minutes, and I was good and got back to work. And that was like, one of my buddies got hit by a smaller rock. It hit him in the knee. He got medevaced out on the helicopter because he couldn't even put weight on it. But anyways, we were out there for 29 hours straight. It was no joke. Like,
Physical. Physical labor,
Physical
29 hours.
nonstop. And once
Bro.
nighttime hit, once we got the line cut where it was our job as the crews that we were with, then we were just sitting there holding it. So then you're sitting there at night just making sure it doesn't cross over. The physical hard part is done, but then the mental part begins, because now you're out there at night, you hear trees falling, and I can't tell you how many times a tree's fallen and we're like running out of the way and could die from that. And but the cold sets in. So you're out there just, cold, and if you're not right next to the fire where there's warmth, it can get pretty cold out there at night when you're up in high elevation. You know that. Like, this is probably
Did you have a sleeping bag or anything?
nothing, man. Nothing.
Nothing. Just what you
No,
had on your fire suit that's all
no.
sweaty from a hard day's
All
work.
sweaty and wet. So you'd be shivering and cold
Yeah.
all night long. And so I was used to the cold. One fire though, I got smart. I watched this old Mountain Man movie with my dad. He actually named me after that movie, Jeremiah Johnson.
Okay.
And
I like Jeremiah Johnson. That's a good movie now.
that's where my name Jeremy comes
Okay.
from. So anyway, one fire I got smart, man. And after I did it, people were looking at me like I was crazy. But I learned from that movie. I was like, you know what? I'm sitting here freezing my a-hole off, and I could be warm right now. And I remember that. I don't know why I remembered that scene from that movie, but I got one of my crewmates' shovels because I had a chainsaw. I was the sawyer. I borrowed their shovel and I dug down about, I'd say about a foot, a nice trench as long as my body. And we were next to, there were still embers and stuff from the fire, but I wanted to catch some Z's, and it was too cold to sleep. So I put down a coal bed of coals, and then I covered that up with dirt, and then I laid down, and it was yeah, it's just like laying on a heater, and I fell asleep.
Absolutely.
But I'll tell you, man, you get creative when you're in situations like you got to. So, but yeah, it would be up all night on these fires. I remember one fire, man, it was really bad where there was just bugs everywhere. I had tarantulas crawling around. I had bugs. I would be so tired, man. Just, you know how it is, sleep deprivation. You feel a bug crawling up your pant leg, and I just grab it and kill it and pass out and leave it in there dead. I didn't even care. I was so tired.
Yeah.
You just whatever. But so that's kind of like my experience with firefighting.
Man,
You
dude.
know,
You so like, I always measure grit, right? Like how much grit did Jeremy Miguel have when he went to Buds? And I'm like, if you ask me, I'll tell you, like, you can't get no more grittier than that. And you didn't just do it for one season, you did it for three, right?
three
You can't.
seasons. And I was selected the hotshot crew. They got two people who got injured my last season. And they're like, if you don't know what the hotshots are, Tahoe Hotshots was the crew I went to for my last season. It was me and one other guy, one other squad leader who got chosen. And they're like top tier. Like these dudes, you're running like 8 miles, not 4 mile runs like we used to do, but every morning you get up, you're running 8 miles before anything else starts. You're doing push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups, and you're doing an 8 mile run. So me and my buddy Mike, we got selected to go join them because they were too short. And man, it was the best. We did some crazy stuff, cut in line with those guys. But it was good. And then I also got that season, after that season, when to prepare myself for Buds, because at that point I made up my mind. I was like, I'm going. I mean, nothing's stopping me. So
Excuse me.
I started working volunteer and going to college. This is when I was going to college for the swimming classes. I started working volunteer with the Forest Service in the wintertime
Okay.
while I was going to college, just so I can live up in the barracks in the woods, because I had pull-up bars there. I had bar dip bars. I had harsh environment, which I wanted. I wanted the harshest environment that I can get. So I worked my way up to, we had this road that went right out of town there called Mosquito Ridge Road. And it's like, I'd say about 8 or 10% grade all the way down, just a windy mountain road that goes down to the river. It's like 4,500 feet up there. I don't know, but it's above sea level. So you're dealing with thinner air.
Yeah.
You know how that is. So I spent my whole time before going to boot running down that hill until I got to doing 14 miles downhill and 14 miles all the way back, or not 14,
Ooh,
seven,
7 and 7.
7 miles, 7 and 7.
Ooh.
So I got to,
Ooh.
yeah, man. And I was doing that 4 days a week. And
Man,
I
so
got my,
you doing almost 60 miles a week. You're doing 56 miles a week.
yeah.
Man, brother.
And I was,
Man.
yeah. And I was still doing the PT video that I had. I put that in the barracks TV in there. It's only me. I didn't care. I had no one else there. And I'd be in there doing my PT, man. I'd do that. I go to the school, swim 3 days a week because they only have class like every other day in community college or
Yep,
whatever.
yep.
And actually, I actually went there on my days. Actually, I went there every day because the teacher told me whenever there's no class, if since I'm a student, I have access to that pool. She said I can go swim whenever I wanted. So I'd go in there. She showed me where the brick was, and I'd be doing laps. So I was running. I'd get up, go work for the day. I'd PT, go work for the day with the guy where we do like a little road maintenance or whatever during the winter time. Was pretty easy. There were some days where I didn't do nothing but work out because they just didn't have nothing for me to do. I was volunteer. So I spent that whole time running those mountain
Mm.
roads, or not put on a ruck. I'd put on my fire pack, and we had a trail that also went down from that same road, the Western States Trail. They have like a 100-mile horse race on there. It's pretty famous. But I'd go down that thing and hike downhill for like a mile or two with like 50 pounds on my back and come all the way back up on the days that I didn't run. So, I mean, I was pushing myself really hard because I knew where I was going wasn't going to be no joke. And
Mm.
I honestly can
Mm.
tell you, man, Jake, I can't say that I would have made it because you just know how Buds is. It's a monster, man.
That's what we're gonna talk
But
about, bro. That's why I'm so
I,
excited that you here, because I think most of the listeners on here would agree that they would bet on you making it, right?
yeah,
They
man.
would bet on you making it. Like, I'll tell you right now, like, I bet on you making it. I'll be like, oh, this dude gonna be just fine.
Yeah. And
Like, he'll be just fine. Like, he done all this stuff. He doing all this preparation. Like, he's 400% prepared. Like, he done been in the cut. He know what real grit looks like.
yeah.
You
And
know.
I had my weight down by then to like 210. So I was pretty solid because a lot of that was muscle from all the pull ups and push ups and all. I mean, I was, like I said, I was able to do 28 pull ups. And so, yeah, man, I did all that and then got to boot camp. And that was back before they had battle stations. Uh, my experience there was just, well, let's just say I was extremely disappointed for the amount of training that I did.
Massively out of shape. Like, you get done with boot camp in the 12 weeks that you're there and you out of shape completely.
I was, man, I did everything I could. Everybody else would be in their rack at night. I was the master at arms. So I took advantage of that. I volunteered. I was like, I'll be the master at arms chief. And I got promoted from E2 to E3 for that. But also what I do in the night in boot camp, because even if they did a smoke session, it was nothing. I was laughing. There's kids over there crying, oh,
Yep.
they're doing this and that.
Yep.
I'm like, man, I'm out of shape. What are you guys talking? I'm getting out of shape here. So I'd go in in boot camp, they had like the showers and then the stalls, the commode stalls. I'd go in there in the middle of the night. Me and this other dude who was a gymnast who just wanted to work out. He was just regular Navy. He wasn't going SEALs or nothing, but he wanted to work out with me. So we'd be in there doing like sit-ups, push-ups, and then I'd go over to the commode and I'd be doing pull-ups on the commode because I was like, how else am I gonna do this? I gotta be prepared for the PST, because I knew I had one shot and I was getting out of shape in boot camp, and I knew I had one shot to pass that PST test. So I was like, there was no way. I don't care if I stayed up until 3 o'clock every night in boot when everyone else is sleeping. I'm gonna make sure. I don't care whatever it takes. I'm not gonna fail that test. That's how bad I wanted to go to Buds.
More gasoline, brother. I had to run at
Yeah.
Buds. When I first got to Buds, I was out of shape. I had to run every night.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Like, just crazy, man. I'm so fired up, man, because, like, you did everything right. Did everything
Yeah.
right. There's nothing like if you ask me, what could I modify a couple things, maybe your swimming routine a little bit, but the bottom line is you had a massive amount of volume going in and you did everything right. So
Yeah.
you get done with boot camp. What's next?
Okay, so for me, I was a parachute rigger. That was my
Yeah.
rate. I got to if they had SO back in those days, I would have so been on it, and I probably, who knows? Who knows what would have happened? Nobody knows. I believe only God knows. But that's an advantage I think the young guys have nowadays too. Is the SO, uh, whatever they
The
call it
SO
in
rate.
boot
It's just
camp.
SO.
Yeah.
It's just I don't know what it stands for. Maybe SEAL operator, whatever it is. I just know that it has helped a lot of things in the SEAL teams because now you don't have guys trying to test for stuff that they don't have no idea about, right? Like
Right.
BOSA's made or machinist made or gunner's made.
Yeah.
Like they taking the SEAL test, which most 95% of them already know pretty much everything on every test.
Yeah, and I'm
So
sure that those divisions get smoked even better in boot
you're talking
camp.
about
And
X division. So they did away with X division. I heard they're bringing it back.
oh no, in boot camp though.
Yeah, in boot camp they did away with it. So it's been gone for a year now because a bunch of people were complaining that they were getting preferential treatment in X division.
Oh, oh, so they don't have it where all the SEAL candidates. Oh,
But I heard it's
that's
coming back.
unfortunate.
It may already be back. I might. I'm
Oh,
not.
okay.
I'm not 100% sure. I haven't had anybody go to basic recently. But yeah, man. So like, but even in X division, they don't run and swim every day.
Yeah, right. Right. So, from what I remember with boot, it was a joke. Like I said, I mean, one thing that sucked is from all the marching everywhere, they gave me too small of boots, and man, my toes got all messed up. To this day, I still got issues with that. So I went and got a new pair of boots. But anyway, when I went to A school, I went to parachute rigger school in Pensacola, Florida. So here's where kind of my downfall was, because too much free time, man. Too much free time. And I'm a young guy, first time away from home, like really away from home, out on my own, 100% independent. And I'm 21, just turned 21. So it's like legal for me to drink. And I let that get me distracted. I'm no problems with the school itself, learning how to pack parachutes, all that. This is all I loved all that. I didn't like learning how to use a sewing machine, but it's part of the job. But you know, the one thing I will say is I don't regret choosing a rate like that, but I will say, man, look, with what these kids got nowadays, you got this, and you're all up in this 20, get this, and this is the best thing that you can do. Put this thing away and focus and stay committed to what you are going after. Do not get distraction. Distraction will destroy you. Don't call your mom and dad. That's another thing. I drove back to my house. Well, let's stay on track with the A school first. But with the A school, I was still training hard. I was swimming. I was swimming, getting stung by jellyfish in Pensacola Bay. I'd run like 8 miles down the road on base there, where there were some pull-up bars. I'd do my pull-ups in the middle of my run and do some push-ups, and then I'd get in the bay. I'd had bought a UDT pair of UDT shorts from the
Oh man,
uniform store or
you
whatever.
went crazy, man.
I
Them things is painful.
Oh yeah, but I was like, yeah, I'm gonna have to get used to running in this kind of. I thought I might be running in those. I didn't know. I didn't know what I was gonna do, but I was trying to be as prepared as I possibly can. So I was out there swimming miles in the Pensacola Bay, getting stung by jellyfish. You know, finally found out from somebody that rubbing sand helps with that, and rubbing sand on that. And
Peeing on it, or having vinegar. Put some
yeah,
vinegar on it.
yeah, but it wasn't like full blown tentacles. It was just like those little pieces of
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah. They
you run
sting
into
though.
those. Hell yeah, they
They
do.
sting.
So, anyways, that was me training, but my downfall was, man, it's making friends that weren't going to buds. I couldn't
Yep.
find anybody else there on the entire base that was going to buds.
You don't need friends. You need
Right,
that
you
mountain.
don't.
You need that mountain and that
You don't.
firehouse by yourself. You don't need friends, bro.
That's right. That's exactly it.
You don't need them.
And that's what I was. We'll get to that later, but that's what I want to tell these kids: is stay focused. Do not get distracted. That was my biggest mistake in A school. Is I started going, I want to go have fun. I'd go out drinking on the weekends. And instead of, polluting my body, I don't care what anybody says. When you're drinking and getting drunk, it's going to affect your physical fitness.
14 days, my dude. College football coach here. 14 days after you drink are the athletic effects of alcohol out of your system.
Yeah.
14 days.
Yeah. So I'll just tell you, if I had it all to do over again, I would have not touched a drop and just focused completely on my free time of just PTing and PTing and PTing some more. But I made that mistake, young. And that's why I was telling you earlier, I think 24, 25, much better age to come in at buds.
And it's interesting, Jeremy, and a lot of my people have already heard this, but I'm going to reiterate it. My mom said I called when I got there in October. She said the next phone call I got was June. Well, they came out and visited like right there in like January. They just showed up one day. I don't remember talking to them. I just saw them and we all got in trouble because they were on the beach and whatever. My dad told them to go screw themselves. But my mom said I called in October when I got there. I called in June and said, I'm graduating next week. You come down. She said, I didn't call him in 10 months. And she was talking to my father about it. My father was like, well, if he ain't called us, he must be doing okay.
Yeah, man.
Like.
Yeah. So I'd say, like, I saw a couple of your other videos where the guys said they talked to some guys that decided to quit. I'd say stay away from that. Don't be getting seeds planted in your head. I'd also say one of the mistakes I made is I went during the in-dock phase of it one weekend because it was only like a 6.5, 8 hour drive to my house. I flew up there to my house, my parents' house, to get my truck, and then drove it all the way back down to the compound. But now that I think about it, even that one weekend going back home got my mind to where it shouldn't have been, because you know how it is. Family asks questions. And you tell them how crazy it is and all that. And
Christmas, I stay right there in the barracks, my dude.
Yep.
Right there in the barracks. Christmas didn't go nowhere.
Yep. And so that's the mistake. Another mistake that I made. Like, if I would have had to do it all over again, I wouldn't have picked up my truck till after I graduated. I would have just, hey, I'm here. Focus on this. This is what matters most right now. You've worked so hard to get here. But I got there. I don't know what month I got there. I know for sure it was like a week or two before we got put in the Indox barracks right there outside of medical.
Yeah.
So I was there like a week or two across the road at first on the amphib, and then they moved us over to the Indoc barracks. But yeah, man, I wouldn't do that. I do not recommend that. Stay in your zone. Stay in your zone. Don't talk to anybody on the outside. Don't talk to your parents. Don't talk to anybody, friends, nobody. Just focus on you and the mission at hand, because it's that serious. The mental part is really, it is the hardest part.
That's a banger right there, folks. We just hit a home run. Jeremy, I want to say thank you 1,000 times over for having the courage to come on here and talk about your journey through SEAL training, your life. I want everybody to understand, man, I don't care how bad you show up, how good a shape you show up in, man, them demons can get you. World class. Jeremy, shout out to you from 217, man. Appreciate it. Thank you. Whoa.